Welcome back, everyone. Let's continue with our chapter in the kingdom of fools. In the last chapter, we read that there's a kingdom and all the people who are there are considered as stupid, are considered as idiots. And why? Because they wanted to run their kingdom. The king wanted to run the kingdom in a different way, so he decided to turn day into night and vice versa. So when they were visitors, the guru and the disciple, they found that nobody was there in the broad daylight. The whole city was deserted, and as soon as it was dusk, each and every shop was open. People had started doing their nightly business. And then we come to know about a case about a burglar who died on the spot because a wall had collapsed on him. So this case has gone to the king, where a number of people are summoned for questioning, and we come across three people until now. One was the burglar's brother who had gone to the court. Then there was merchant. Then the merchant said that I have not made the wall. The bricklayer is the culprit. So the bricklayer was summoned, and he blames the dancing girl, and the dancing girl was called. Okay, let's continue. She thought for a minute and said, "My lord, wait. I know now why I was walking up and down that street. I had given some gold to the goldsmith to make some jewelry for me. He was a lazy scoundrel. He made me so many excuses, said he would give it now and he would give it then, and so on all day." So here the king was going to announce her as the culprit and give her the punishment, but she said, "Please wait for a minute and listen to me. I remember why I was going down that street every day, because I had given some golds to the goldsmith to make some jewelry for me, but he was a lazy person. He was not giving my delivery on time. That is why I had to go down that street each day. He was giving me excuses every day. He made me walk up and down to his house a dozen times. That was when this bricklayer saw me. It's not my fault, my lord. It's the damn goldsmith's fault." And then the dancing girl puts the blame to the goldsmith, and she says that it is the mistake of goldsmith. The goldsmith is at fault here because he had made me walk up and down that street at that time. He was giving me excuses each and every day, and that is why I had to walk from my house to his a dozen times. And that is when this bricklayer must have seen me and he got distracted. This is not my fault, this is goldsmith's fault. "Poor thing, she's absolutely right," thought the king, weighing the evidence. Now this foolish and stupid king, he says that this lady is not at fault. She is not the real culprit. She is saying absolutely right that this goldsmith is at fault. We've got the real culprit at last. Get the goldsmith wherever he is hiding at once. So the king orders and calls him. The king's bailiffs searched for the goldsmith, who was hiding in a corner of his shop. When he heard the accusation against him, he had his own story to tell. Now the king's bailiff searched for the goldsmith. Bailiff is the person in the court who looks after the law and order. This word is rarely used now. So he was hiding in the corner of his shop. The goldsmith was hiding there, and when he heard the accusation, the blame which was put on him, he had his own story to tell. Now another story. "I am a poor goldsmith. It's true, I made this dancer come many times to my door. I gave her excuses because I could not finish making her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's orders." Now he said that I was giving her excuses. I was not able to give her order on time because I had to finish the rich merchant's orders. They had a wedding coming and they wouldn't wait. You know how impatient rich men are. And he says that because they had a wedding and he was so impatient, he was not giving me any time. So that is why it is not my fault. I had to give this girl excuses because I was completing the jewelry of this rich merchant. Who is this rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry, made her walk up and down which distracted this bricklayer, which made a mess of his wall, which has now fallen on an innocent man and killed him. Can you name him? Now look at the chain which the king is creating here. He says that who is this rich merchant because of which you could not finish your work on time? This poor girl had to walk up and down dozen times. This bricklayer could not concentrate on his work, and the wall had collapsed, and this innocent man, still he's calling that burglar an innocent man. Say this innocent man has died. Can you name this person? Let's see what the goldsmith has to say. The goldsmith named the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. Who is the original owner? The merchant's father. Now justice had come full circle, right from where it started. Thought the king back to the merchant. Now again the case had come to merchant. When he was rudely summoned back to the court, he arrived crying. It wasn't me, but my father who ordered the jewelry. He's dead. I'm innocent. Now the king was very much frustrated, and he rudely summons the merchant, and when he comes crying. He arrives crying in the court that it's not my fault, it was my father's fault. He had ordered the jewelry, and he's dead now. I am innocent. But the king consulted his minister and ruled decisively. That means he tried to take a decision in a convincing manner. It's true, your father is the true murderer. He's dead, but somebody must be punished in his place. Now this king says that doesn't matter if your father is dead. We'll have to punish somebody. So let's see who will be punished. You have inherited everything from that criminal father of yours, his riches as well as his sins. So he says, since you are his son, so you have inherited. What is inherited? That means you're the legal heir of your father's sins. That means all the bad deeds as well as his riches. I knew at once, even when I first set eyes on you, that you were at the root of this horrible crime. You must die. And the king says, I knew it from the beginning that you are the real culprit. I knew that you are responsible for this horrible crime, and you must die. He has given the punishment. He has given his jurisdiction. And he ordered a new stake to be made ready for the execution. Stake is a pole which you post in the ground, and the person is tied to that stake for the execution, for the death penalty. As the servants sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal, it occurred to the minister that the rich merchant was somehow too thin to be properly executed on the stake. Okay, to impale means to transfer or to pierce with a sharp instrument. Okay, so that is what you do with a stake. The picture, as you can see, that's a stake, and that is how you do execution, how you punish people on stake. This is a way old, century old method of execution. Now it's not used anywhere. So it occurred to the minister, he thought that this rich merchant was really thin. He cannot be properly executed through stake. He is really thin. He appeals to the king's common sense. That means he told him this thing. The king too worried about it. Now the king was also worried that now what to do? This man is too thin. How can we give him punishment now? He cannot be executed properly because he's really thin. What shall we do? He said, when suddenly it struck him that all they needed to do was to find a man fat enough to quit the stake. And the king, wisely enough, that's a pun here, I'm making a joke. So wisely enough, he says that all they needed was a man who was fat enough so that this stake can fit into him. The servants were immediately sent all over the town looking for a man who would fit the stake, and their eyes fell on the disciple who had fattened himself for months on bananas and rice and wheat and ghee. So they went all around the city and they found one man who had fattened himself. And who was this man? The disciple. It's written. So their eyes fell on the disciple who had fattened himself now, because he was for months. It had been months now that he had been eating bananas and rice and wheat and whatnot. What have I done wrong? I'm innocent. I am a sannyasi, he cried. Now, when they were taking him to the court for punishment for the execution, the disciple says that I've not done anything wrong. Why are you taking me? I am a sannyasi. That may be true, but it's the royal decree. Decree means decision, that we should find a man fat enough to fit the stake. And they tell him the decision and carried him to the place of execution. He remembered his wise guru's words, "This is a city of fools. You don't know what they will do next." And now, when he was surrounded by adversities, now he remembers the wisdom of his guru. While he was waiting for death, he prayed to his guru in his heart, asking him to hear his cry whenever he was, wherever he was. So he was in his heart praying to his guru that please come and save me. He was crying. The guru saw everything in a vision. He is a guru, he has his powers, so he was able to see that his disciple is in trouble. He had magic powers, he could see far and he could see the future, as he could see the present and the past. He had some magical powers and he could predict what could happen in the future. He could see the present as well as the past. He arrived at once to save his disciple, and as soon as he could see that his disciple was in trouble, he arrived there at once. Who had got himself into such a scrape through love of food, who had got himself into such a trouble because of his foolishness and the love of food that he had. The guru had warned him, please do not stay here. But the disciple did not agree to him then and now was in trouble. As soon as he arrived, he scolded the disciple and told him something in a whisper. So he must be angry with the disciple, so he scolded him and then he murmured something into his ear. Then he went to the king and addressed him. O wisest of kings, who is greater, the guru or the disciple? Of course, the guru, no doubt about it. Why do you ask? Now the guru goes to the court and says, O wisest of kings, thoda sa makhan lagana. Okay, O wisest of kings, who is greater, the guru or the disciple? Of course, the guru, the king answers. Of course, the guru, no doubt about it. So he's trying to flatter him. Why do you ask? Then put me to the stake first, put my disciple to death after me. And the guru says that if I am greater than my disciple, then I should be the first one to be put on that stake. My disciple will go after me. I should be the one. And you see here, everybody is thinking this is the guru, and here this is the disciple, the king and the minister. So everybody is thinking here, they're in a fix what to do, the king and the ministers. When the disciple heard this, he understood and began to clamor, me first. And when the disciple heard this thing, that the guru is saying that he will go to the stake first, he understood. What did he understand? That this is a plan. The guru is playing his trick. He's using his wisdom to get the disciple out of this trouble. He understood and began to clamor. That means to shout loudly. Me first. You brought me here first. Put me to death first, not him. So he started shouting loudly. The guru and the disciple now got into a fight about who should go first. And now they started quarreling with each other that no, I will go first. And the disciple also said the same thing. The king was puzzled by this behavior. Now the king was in a fix. He was confused that why are they fighting to get executed? Why are they fighting to get punished? He asked the guru, why do you want to die? We chose him because we needed a fat man for the stake. So why do you want to die? We are putting him to execution. We are just putting him to stake because the real culprit was too thin. And that is why we are putting him to stake. You should not ask me such questions. Put me to death first, replied the guru. And the guru, really calmly, he said that do not ask me such questions. You have to put me to death first. I should be the first one to go to that stake. Why? There is some mystery here. As a wise man, you must make me understand. And the king says, he requests the Guru that you are a wise man and you should make me understand. I am the king here. I have the right to know what is the mystery about the stake. Will you promise me to put to death if I tell you? Asked the Guru. So he says, first you have to promise me that if I tell you this mystery, why am I so anxious to go there to the stake? You have to put me to death first. The king gave him his solemn word, and the king promised him. The Guru took him aside out of the servants' earshot, that means the servants could not hear, and whispered to him, Do you know why we want to die right now, the two of us? We have been all over the world, but we have never found a city like this or a king like you. So he's whispering in his ears that we have been. Who is we? We here are the Guru and the disciple. So he says that we have been to all over the world, but we have never found a city like yours and a king like you. That stake is the stake of God of justice. Do you even know this stake is so pious? The stake is so holy. It's new. It has never had a criminal on it. And since the stake was just made, so he says that it is a new stake, and since a criminal has never been executed on this, so this is the stake of God, and whoever dies on it first will be, very important line, whoever dies on it first will be reborn as the king of this country, and whoever goes next will be the future minister of this country. Now, the Guru reveals that he wants to be the first one to go on that stake because this is the stake of God of justice, and whoever dies on it first will in his next birth be born as the king of this country, and the next one to go will be the future minister of this country. In the next life, the first one will become the king, and the next one to go will be the minister. Now, here is a catch. Do you think the Guru was saying the truth? We'll find it out. If you're wise enough, you must have understood his plan. Okay. We are sick of our ascetic life. That means a simple life, the life of monk that he was living, that they were living. We are sick of our ascetic life. It would be nice to enjoy ourselves as king and minister for a while. Now keep your word, my lord, and put us to death. Me first, remember? Now the king reveals his plan that why is he so desperate to be the first one to be executed on this new stake. Now he says to the king that keep your promise and remember I have to be the first one. The king was now thrown into deep thought. Now he starts thinking. He did not want to lose the kingdom to someone else in the next round of life, and he was in a fix. He was in a deep thought. He started thinking that I don't want to lose my kingdom. He needed time, so he asked for some time. So he ordered the execution postponed to the next day. So he said that the punishment will be given on the next day, and talked in a secret with his minister. It's not right for us to give over the kingdom to others in the next life. He's saying this to the minister. Let's go on the stake ourselves and will be reborn as king and minister again. Holy men do not tell lies, he said, and the minister agreed. So here what happens? He says that I cannot leave my kingdom in the next life. How can I leave this chance to become a king again in the next life? And he says that holy men do not lie. So he told the executioners that we will send the criminals tonight. When the first man comes to you, put him to death first. Then do the same to the second man. Those are my orders. Don't make any mistake. So he orders this to the executioners. That means the person who is going to give the punishment. That night, the king and his minister went secretly to the prison. And at that night, when the execution had to happen, the punishment was to be given. The king and minister, they hide themselves, they disguise themselves, and they go to the prison, to the jail. Release the Guru and the disciple, disguised themselves as the two. That means they were hiding their identity of being the king and the minister, and they pretended to be Guru and the disciple. and the Guru and the disciple were released, and as arranged beforehand with loyal servants, were taken to the stake and promptly executed. Understand this, what has happened here? So the king orders the man that the prisoners will be sent today, the criminals will be sent today. The first man who comes here, you have to put him to death first, and then to the second one. They go to the prison, they disguise themselves as the Guru and the disciple, and the Guru and disciple were released. And so as the executioner was ordered, so they were taken to the stake and they were immediately executed. They were immediately killed. Who was killed? The king and the minister. Let's see what happens next. Can you see in the picture? Here. This is Guru, the disciple, and the king and the minister are here. When the bodies were taken down to be thrown to crows and vultures, the people panicked. That means the people were afraid. What is this? They saw before them the dead bodies of the king and the minister, and they saw that this is the dead body of the king as well as the minister. The city was in confusion. Everybody was confused. How come the king and minister is dead? The punishment was for Guru and the disciple. All night they mourned. That means they were crying upon the death of the king and minister and discussed the future of the kingdom. And they started discussing that who should be the next king and the minister. Some people suddenly thought of the Guru and the disciple and caught up with them as they were preparing to leave town unnoticed. So Guru and the disciple, after this was done, and the disciple was finally out of trouble now. So without getting noticed, they were leaving the city, but people caught them. People surrounded them. We people need a king and a minister, said someone. Others agreed. They begged the Guru, that means they requested the Guru and the disciple to be their king and their minister. It did not take many arguments to persuade the disciple, but it took longer to persuade the Guru. Persuade means to convince, to influence. So the disciple did not take much time to agree to this, to become the minister of this kingdom, but for the Guru, yes, it took some time. They finally agreed to rule the kingdom of the foolish king and the silly minister on the condition that they could change all the old laws. So the Guru and the disciple, they agreed with one condition, that the prevailing laws, the laws which were there earlier, they will all be abolished. From then on, night would again be night and day would again be day. And you could get nothing for a dudu. These three rules were promptly, they were changed. It became like any other place. Okay. I hope you must have enjoyed this story. The foolish king and the kingdom, the foolish ministers, the advisors, they did not have much wisdom to understand that the Guru was playing a trick with them. They could not even understand that this Guru, how can he predict what is going to happen in the next life? We understand that magical powers are there to control or to predict what will happen to you in the present birth, in your present life. But how can you decide about the next life? They were foolish enough, they believed the Guru as they were stupid. They did not have that much wisdom to understand that the Guru was fooling them. And that's how their life ended. Okay, so that is why it is always said that you should never blind trust anybody. Do not take any decision in a hurry. Do not be greedy. Because whenever you take a decision in a haste, H-A-S-T-E, that means in a hurry. I hope you must have enjoyed the lesson, and go through the video again if you have any doubts.